Chapter 15. Owen looked all around him as he was escorted down the long hallway. There was someone on either side of him. They were wearing dark blue suits with silver stripes down the sides. They also had helmets with copper-colored visors on their heads, so Owen couldn't see their faces. The hallway itself was blue-black, with fluorescent lights leading down the path they were taking. Owen was not walking with his escorts, but floating. His feet were only 2 inches off the ground. There was also a round object over his head, and he assumed it was what was causing this. Up ahead, the path spiraled upward along the walls. There were several other people in suits and helmets similar to what his escorts were wearing. Some of them were holding charts or weird devices. They varied in shape. Some were petite, others bulky. They all watched Owen as he floated past them, up the spirally path. Owen looked behind him and got an instant sense of vertigo as he saw the ground floor far below. Now he and the other two approached a large round door. It looked like it was made of copper. It opened, and they made their way to the center of a room. Owen gave a noticeable gasp. The room was cast in a light that was green and familiar. He had seen this very room in several of his strange dreams, where he had seen himself building the orb. His escorts took him to the center and left. Owen continued floating where he was, and found it frustrating that he could move only his head. He figured he was being held by a force field or something. "Holy crap," he said aloud. "I've been abducted by aliens." He looked around the room some more. It was exactly the same as the one in his dreams. It was all making sense to him now. Those dreams had been Darlington's memories, and the weird bubble that was currently in Owen's head was what allowed him to see them. Which meant Darlington had built the orb. It had been his long, pale fingers that Owen had always seen caressing and assembling it. But why had he built it? And why had Owen been captured by these beings? He didn't have the orb anymore. The more questions that got answered, the more new questions formed. Suddenly the door opened again, and 2 figures, different from the ones that brought him, walked in. They were similar in shape, but were wearing what looked like lime-colored suits in the green light. They stood before Owen, staring out of helmets that had reflective visors. Owen couldn't see their faces. A few seconds went by in silence, and Owen couldn't shake the feeling they wanted to intimidate him, whoever they were. They almost seemed like extraterrestrial cops. Then the one on Owen's right raised his hand to his helmet and removed it. The face Owen saw before him rendered him speechless. "Where's the orb?" the alien asked. But he wasn't really an alien. Or, at least, he didn't look like one. And he had a strong country twang. Texas, maybe. What Owen saw was a tight-faced man with short salt-and-pepper hair. His skin was tanned, and his eyes were green. He looked human. I don't have it. Someone took it from me," Owen said, still astounded. "Who took it?" "What do you want with it?" Owen had to ask. If they wanted it for destructive purposes, then he was better off not telling them a thing. On the other hand, it had been Jason who'd been acting as the voice in his head, so the information that he gave about the invaders surely had been false, right? "What's your name, son?" the man asked. "Owen?" "Well, Owen, that orb is a very bad thing, and we need to find it so we can destroy it. Now, we caught you in the vicinity of the orb's last known whereabouts, which is why we took you. If you don't have it, we need to know who does, and we need to know now." Owen looked from the man to his partner, who still had his helmet on. "Who are you?" With that, the other man removed his helmet as well. Owen closed his eyes, thinking he was seeing things. Then he opened them again. Sure enough, he was seeing true. The men were identical, both with the same tight, tan faces and short hair. Were they clones or twins? "We're the good guys, Owen," said the man on the left. "Then why did you send those giants?" Owen asked. "They're destroying everything and killing people." The twins, or clones, both looked saddened by this. "We didn't send them," said Right Twin. "The others did. Those giants are scouts. They were sent to the places where the orb was activated. It leaves an energy signature every time it's fully powered on. The technicians controlling the scouts are being a little reckless." "Controlling them?" Owen asked. "Yes," said Left Twin. "Those giants are really just robots. What, did you think they were real giants?" The twins laughed together. "What are those scepters they planted?" Owen really wanted to know the answer to this. The twins immediately ceased their laughter. "Well, that's why it's important for you to help us," said Left Twin. "Those scepters were planted for one purpose, to destroy the planet's surface. Pretty soon, the others will send a lot of energy through those scepters, which will cook the surface of your world. If we can't find the orb, they will make sure no one is around to use it." "They?" Owen felt like he was missing something. "You mean the others?" "Yes," said Right Twin. "The ones who are running this whole expedition. We're trying to hold them off as long as we can, but we need your help, Owen. We don't want your world destroyed." Owen felt it was time to tell them what they needed to know, though he still didn't understand what was happening. How could these seemingly average guys be mixed up with planet-destroying aliens? Were they not aliens themselves? "A man took it from me," Owen told them. "His name is Jason." "Where is he, and why did he take it?" asked Left Twin. "I don't know where he is, but he took it because he wants to rule the planet with it. At least, that's what I think he wants." The twins laughed again, though nervously this time. "Why would he think he could do such a thing with it?" asked Left Twin. "I don't know," Owen lied. He was nervous about telling them of the parasite thing inside him and Jason, the thing that once resided inside Darlington the alien, not knowing how they would react to the news. And then he thought of something. "Do you guys know who built the orb?" The twins grew nervous once again. Then Right Twin said, "Yes, we know of him. He's one of them. His name is Arminus, and we're searching for him too." Arminus? That had to be Darlington, but Owen preferred his true name. "Do you know where he is?" Left Twin asked. "No." Owen wasn't sure what to tell them. He knew very little about Darlington, Arminus, and didn't want to speak about him until he learned more. So he asked, "Why are you guys looking for him?" They eyed Owen suspiciously. Right Twin said, "This Jason must know Arminus if he is planning to rule your world with the orb, for that is what Arminus himself tried to do in our world." Left Twin continued, "Arminus was the smartest of us all in our world. So smart, in fact, he felt he should be ruler, so he built a device that could wipe clean the minds of anyone who got in his way. Arminus's plan was to control the minds of our leaders and rule through them. Then his plans were discovered, and Arminus had to revise them. He decided to control the minds of everyone." "Why did he come here?" Owen asked, captivated. "We drove him off, simple as that," said Right Twin. "He's power hungry. He wants to rule a world. If it's not his own, then it's another." Owen thought about that. Darlington, who was now Arminus, never seemed like the planet-ruling type, but Owen figured the will to do so must have been sucked out of him when the weird bubble thing left his body. Owen wanted to know what the misty thing was, but was afraid to ask. He knew he would find out before too long, though. "Hey, could you guys let me down?" he asked, looking up at the field generator above his head. "I mean, where am I going to go, right?" Left Twin reached up and touched the generator. A second later, Owen's feet were touching the ground once more. Right Twin handed him something. "I believe this belongs to you," he said to Owen. It was his gray hoodie. Owen took it and thanked the twin. "What are your names?" he finally asked. Left Twin said, "I'm Claude, and this is Calvin." Calvin nodded. Owen smiled, despite himself. Calvin and Claude. Those were weird names for aliens. Then something occurred to Owen, and he just had to ask, "Are you guys taking on human form to make me more comfortable?" The twins looked at each other, then back at Owen. "This is what we really look like," said Claude. The twins, Calvin and Claude, escorted Owen out of the lab where they had been detaining him and took him to the top of the path. Their suits were actually reflective silver and caught Owen's eye. Calvin, or was it Claude, reached out and opened a round silver door. They all stepped inside a room that looked to Owen like an office, with fluorescent light fixtures on the walls. The walls themselves were blue-black. There were several orange computer monitors here and there, with strange images on them. And then Owen noticed someone in the room with them. He sat at a silver desk with his long fingers crossed, as if he were praying. His skin looked yellow and was pulled tight on his bald head. He wore a dark blue suit with yellow stripes. The stranger looked like Darlington, Arminus, only a little older. One of the twins said something to the man that Owen couldn't understand. The man nodded. "Owen, this is Demetrius," said Calvin. "He's our captain." Owen nodded to Demetrius, getting one in return. Demetrius offered a steel, uncomfortable-looking chair. Owen took it and grimaced as the cold chair back seeped through his clothes. The twins remained standing. Demetrius said something in that weird language. It sounded like a voice recording played backward, and Claude translated. "He says he would like to apologize for capturing you in such a manner, and only did so because of your proximity to the orb. We like to think of ourselves as civilized, to be honest with you." Owen looked from Demetrius to Claude with an eyebrow raised. "Those were his words," Claude said with a grin. Demetrius spoke again, and Claude's grin vanished. "However, we are taking our mission very seriously." A rectangular holographic image appeared over the desk. It was orange like the monitors, but Owen could see the images perfectly. There was a gallery of creatures varying in size. A large dog-like creature that wasn't a dog. Something that looked like a squishy baseball with tentacles. A furry slug. That one made him think of Bentley the dogfish. There was another creature listed next to the slug, and Owen recognized it immediately. It was the vampire thing he'd encountered many times already. Each of the creatures were highlighted in blue and spun around as if they were on a turntable. "These," Claude began translating as Demetrius spoke again, "are the specimens Arminus took with him when he abandoned the ship. He used them for his experiments." Owen looked at the vampires again. They were aliens too? He didn't find that too hard to believe, but what did they have to do with the orb? Owen looked to Claude and was about to ask when Claude spoke. "You recognize the leech, don't you?" "Yeah, they're pretty nasty little creatures known for their ability to change shape. Arminus captured a few babies to use for their venom. It paralyzes the brain and makes one susceptible to suggestion. Arminus constructed the orb to act as a delivery system for the venom. At the orb's core is a processor that generates waves of energy. With the venom as its fuel, the energy mixes with it and, well, you get the idea. How many baby leeches did he have? Owen asked. 10, Calvin answered. Owen did the math. The unstoppable Titans had killed 5. Doug killed 1 in Birch Plaza. Doug and Curtis killed 2 in Cullen's house. Owen still didn't know whether the Eric leech was still alive, for they had left it in the alley when Michael killed Alyssa. But if it was, that left 2 leeches. If Eric was dead, then that just left 1 leech. A couple of my friends are infected with the leech venom, Owen said, thinking of Chris and Stephanie. Is there a cure? Yes, said Calvin. The cure lies with the venom itself. All you have to do is reverse its main properties and inject it into the victims. The 2 venom strands will cancel each other out. The subjects must have escaped when Arminus crashed, if your friends were attacked by leeches, Claude continued. Either that or he jettisoned them from the ship. They were all babies and easy to transport. Owen looked back at the holographic display, thinking about how he had seen Arminus's ship disappear right before his eyes after it crashed on his farm. He was too afraid to tell the twins that, though. How would he explain his knowledge of that? Thinking back to the specimens, Owen had seen the giant dog in his dream, where the slug bit its head off under Arminus's command. And that tentacled thing. Alyssa. This had to be the thing that killed her little sisters. Where was it now? The Gulf of Mexico? Owen thought. He remembered the stories Daniel found on the internet about a creature in the Gulf. It had to be the same thing. Only, it had to be a lot bigger now. Maybe it attached itself to a whale or something, if the stories of its size were to be believed. What about the slug thing? Owen asked, pointing to its blue spinning image on the orange monitor. Those are parasites. They attach to something and become a part of it. I've seen those, I think, Owen said hesitantly. They attached to some fish we found. We kept one as a pet for a day. Demetrius said something just then, and Owen looked away from the display. Claude translated. Arminus planned this treachery right under our noses, and I will not allow him to get away with it. I was once very proud of him. He is smarter than all of us, and he has abilities that none of us possess. If we can't find him and his orb, we will scorch this world of all life. He will not escape us this time. Owen gulped as the display changed to the 4 scepters the giants had planted. A spherical ship appeared over the scepters, and bolts of energy shot down from the ship to them. Fireballs shot out of the 4 lenses on the scepters, incinerating everything in their way. They left Demetrius's office a minute later, and Owen stood against the guardrail to look down at the floor, even though he knew it would make him dizzy again. The floor looked like a bowl, and in the middle of the bowl was an opening. What was down there? You see the seriousness of the situation, Calvin said, leaning next to Owen and looking down as well. You can't just destroy Earth like this, Owen said urgently. It's not right. Our hands are tied, Owen, said Calvin. Walk with us. The 3 of them walked down the spiraling path and went through a door on the ground floor of the main ship. Then they went down a staircase and were in what looked like a hangar. Owen walked up to a guardrail and looked down. It was a hangar. There were dozens of small, round ships. They were all blue, just like the one he saw Arminus piloting. There was an airlock in the middle of the hangar floor, with 2 guide tracks on either side. Owen looked up to see a dome-shaped ceiling. He could see up into the main ship from here through the large opening in the middle. He suspected this was where he ended up before he awoke, and found himself being escorted to the green room. Calvin and Claude leaned against the rail on either side of him. They looked worried. We were once astronauts, Owen, said Claude. My brother and I were experimenting with interdimensional travel. This is our ship. Calvin roughly nudged Claude with his elbow. We ended up in some strange primitive world overrun with monsters. The leeches were everywhere, scouring the barren, dry wastelands. The people there, Demetrius and the others, lived in fear of these monsters until we came along. We did everything we could to teach the people to fight back. We taught them our technology. We tried to teach them our language, but it seemed pointless, since there were more of them than us. So they taught us. Owen listened, not knowing where this was going. He wanted more than anything to just get back down to land. He eyed the small round ships. They were all lined up in front of hatches in the walls. The platform they were standing on wrapped around on both sides, making Owen wonder just how big this ship really was. It was clearly spherical, like the smaller ships below. Together, Calvin and I helped the people reclaim their world, Claude finished. The twins turned Owen to a monitor placed by the main doorway. Claude punched in a few commands and a video began playing. Owen watched as thousands of small black creatures swarmed over a brown landscape like a wave. He recognized them as the leeches he had fought with his friends. Only there were many more now. It was a damn infestation, Calvin commented as if reading Owen's thoughts. We were greatly outnumbered. We had to act. Owen continued to watch as the plague of leeches rampaged through what looked like a town filled with houses made of white stone. He could also see pale figures running away from the leeches in terror. This is just a reenactment, said Claude. But it's basically what happened. And now the blue giant dropped from the hovering spherical ship and planted its 4 scepters into the ground, facing north, south, east, and west. Then, Blue was retrieved by the ship, along with the fleeing group of pale citizens. Suddenly, the screen went completely white. Well, Calvin said, you can guess the rest. How long ago was this? Owen asked. Oh, 20 years ago, maybe, Calvin said. Give or take a few years. Which planet? Owen asked quietly. Arminus is Demetrius's son, Claude said, ignoring Owen's question. This is a personal thing with Demetrius. His son betrayed him. We need your help finding Arminus and the orb. We don't want your world destroyed. We can try to delay the scorching only for a little while, but we're going to have to work fast if we're to save your people from destruction. From those scepters? Owen asked. Why would you build something like that? That's not what they were built for, Calvin said. They are like solar batteries, so to speak. But we found a way to use them to unleash a tremendous amount of energy once they are aligned. But they need a bolt of energy to jumpstart them. Owen shook his head in disbelief. And the giants? What are those for? Well, let's just say we had an encounter with a giant once. It tried to destroy our world, so we built our giants in order to retaliate. But the giant disappeared and never came back. So now we use ours for exploration and heavy lifting. Calvin smiled innocently. Too innocently. Owen wasn't sure if he believed the friendly-looking alien, but he had no other option.